My name is Sarah Martinez, and I'm 34 years old. For the past 8 years, I've been working as a house cleaner in the affluent neighborhoods of Beverly Hills, California. Every morning at 6 a.m., I wake up in my small apartment in East LA, prepare my cleaning supplies, and drive my old Honda Civic through the winding roads that separate my world from theirs. It was a typical Tuesday morning in October when everything changed. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of jasmine from the manicured gardens I passed every day. I had been cleaning Mrs. Eleanor Whitman's mansion for 3 years. She was an 87-year-old widow who lived alone in a 12,000-square-foot house on Sunset Boulevard. Most of my wealthy clients barely acknowledged my presence, but Mrs. Whitman was different. She would always greet me with a warm smile and insist I call her Eleanor. While I cleaned, she would tell me stories about her late husband, a successful real estate developer, and their travels around the world. Sometimes she would sit in her sunroom, watching me work in the garden, and we would chat about everything and nothing. That Tuesday morning, I arrived at the mansion as usual. The gates were open, which was strange because Eleanor always kept them locked. I parked in the circular driveway and noticed several expensive cars I didn't recognize. My heart began to race as I approached the front door. A tall man in a dark suit answered before I could ring the bell. "Are you Sarah Martinez?" he asked, his voice formal but kind. "Yes, I'm here to clean. Is Mrs. Whitman okay?" I clutched my cleaning caddy tighter, sensing something was terribly wrong. "I'm Robert Chen, Mrs. Whitman's attorney. Please come in, we need to talk." The marble foyer felt colder than usual. Eleanor's favorite orchids still adorned the side table, but the house had an emptiness that made my stomach drop. Mr. Chen led me to the living room where 2 other people sat waiting. A middle-aged woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a younger man in an expensive suit. "Sarah, I'm sorry to inform you that Mrs. Whitman passed away peacefully in her sleep Sunday night," Mr. Chen said gently. The news hit me like a physical blow. Eleanor had seemed fine when I last saw her on Friday. We had laughed together as she told me about her neighbor's new puppy getting into her rose garden. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. The blonde woman cleared her throat impatiently. "I'm Patricia Whitman, Eleanor's daughter-in-law, and this is my son, Marcus. We're here to settle the estate matters." Patricia's tone was cold, dismissive. She looked at me like I was an inconvenience, something to be dealt with quickly. Marcus seemed uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. Mr. Chen opened his briefcase and pulled out several documents. "Sarah, Mrs. Whitman left specific instructions regarding you in her will. She wanted me to read this section to you personally." He cleared his throat and began reading. "To Sarah Martinez, who has been more than an employee, but a true friend who brought light into my final years. I leave my home at 1247 Sunset Boulevard, along with all its contents and the adjacent properties, valued at approximately $12 million. The room fell silent. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Patricia's face turned red with rage. "This is ridiculous," Patricia shouted, jumping to her feet. "She's just a cleaning lady. This has to be some mistake." Marcus looked shocked, but remained seated. Mr. Chen continued calmly. "There's no mistake. Mrs. Whitman was of sound mind when she made these changes to her will 6 months ago. She also left a personal letter for Sarah." He handed me an envelope with my name written in Eleanor's elegant handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My dear Sarah," the letter began, "if you're reading this, then I'm no longer with you, but please don't cry for me. I lived a full, wonderful life, and your friendship made my final years truly special. You might be wondering why I've left you my home. The truth is, you've been the daughter I never had. Patricia married my son for money and has been waiting for me to die so she could inherit everything. She never once visited me out of love, only obligation and greed. But you, Sarah, you saw me as a person, not just an old woman with money. You listened to my stories, laughed at my jokes, and treated me with genuine kindness. You brought fresh flowers from your own garden because you knew I loved them. You stayed late when I was sick, making sure I had soup and medicine. I know this gift will change your life, but I also know you'll handle it with the grace and wisdom you've always shown. Use this blessing to build the life you deserve. With all my love, Eleanor." Tears streamed down my face as I finished reading. Patricia was pacing the room like a caged animal. "This is insane. We'll contest this will. She's manipulated a sick old woman." Mr. Chen's voice remained steady. Mrs. Whitman anticipated this reaction. She had a full psychological evaluation done when she updated her will. She was completely competent. She also has security footage of her interactions with Sarah over the years, documenting their genuine friendship. He turned to me. Sarah, Mrs. Whitman wanted to ensure you understood that this isn't charity. She considered you family. She's also left instructions for the transition and money to cover all taxes and fees. I sat there in shock, still holding Eleanor's letter. This couldn't be real. People like me don't inherit mansions. I cleaned houses for a living, barely making ends meet, sending money to my mother in Mexico every month. Patricia's voice brought me back to reality. We won't let this stand. Come on, Marcus, we're calling our lawyers. As they stormed out, Marcus paused at the door. I'm sorry for your loss, he said quietly. My grandmother really did care about you. Then he followed his mother. Mr. Chen and I sat in the sudden quiet of the enormous house. This is overwhelming, I know, he said. But Eleanor planned everything carefully. She's left detailed instructions for managing the properties, and she's arranged for a financial advisor to help you. He handed me a set of keys, ornate, heavy keys that felt foreign in my calloused hands. These are yours now, Sarah. Eleanor wanted you to know that you've earned this through your kindness and loyalty. As I held those keys, I thought about Eleanor's words. Had I really made such a difference in her life? I remembered the small things, bringing her favorite tea, staying to chat when she seemed lonely, helping her write emails to her old friends. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Now you go home, process this news, and when you're ready, we'll handle all the legal details. Eleanor left enough money to cover everything. Taxes, fees, maintenance for the first year. She thought of everything. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at the keys on my kitchen table. My roommate Maria couldn't believe it when I told her what happened. $12 million, Sarah. You're rich, she kept saying. But I didn't feel rich. I felt lost, scared, and incredibly sad about losing Eleanor. She had been more than an employer. She had been the grandmother I never knew, the friend who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, paperwork, and hostile encounters with Patricia and her lawyers. They tried everything to contest the will, claiming I had manipulated Eleanor, that she wasn't mentally competent, even suggesting I had forged documents. But Eleanor had been thorough. She had video evidence of our conversations, documented our friendship, and had multiple witnesses to her sound mental state. Her lawyer had prepared for every possible challenge. The hardest part wasn't dealing with the legal battles, it was dealing with my own doubts. Late at night, I would lie awake wondering if I deserved this gift. I was just a cleaning lady from East LA. What did I know about managing properties worth millions of dollars? My family's reaction was mixed. My mother was thrilled and proud, but my sister Carmen was skeptical. Sarah, this seems too good to be true. Are you sure this old lady didn't have some ulterior motive? She asked during one of our phone calls. Carmen, I knew Eleanor for 3 years. She was lonely and kind. She saw something in me that maybe I couldn't see in myself. But Carmen's words echoed my own fears. What if I wasn't worthy of this gift? What if I couldn't handle the responsibility? 1 month after Eleanor's death, Mr. Chen called me to his office for the final transfer of ownership. As I sat in his elegant downtown office, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline, I thought about how dramatically my life had changed. Sarah, before we complete this transfer, I want you to know that Eleanor left one more thing for you, Mr. Chen said, handing me a small wrapped box. Inside was a beautiful silver locket with Eleanor's picture and an inscription, "To my chosen daughter, with endless love." That's when I finally understood. Eleanor hadn't left me her fortune because she pitied me or because she was trying to spite her family. She had left it to me because she genuinely loved me like a daughter, and she wanted to give me the opportunities she felt I deserved. Are you ready to sign the papers? Mr. Chen asked gently. I thought about Eleanor's words, about the kindness she had shown me, about the trust she had placed in me. I thought about my mother working in factories in Mexico, about all the houses I had cleaned, about all the dreams I had put aside because they seemed impossible. Yes, I said, my voice stronger than I had felt in weeks. I'm ready. As I signed document after document, making me the legal owner of properties worth $12 million, I made a silent promise to Eleanor. I would honor her gift by using it wisely, by helping others the way she had helped me. 6 months later, I stood in Eleanor's, now my, sunroom, watching the sunrise paint the Los Angeles hills in shades of gold and pink. The house no longer felt empty. I had gradually moved in, bringing warmth and life back to rooms that had been too quiet for too long. I hadn't quit cleaning entirely, but now I only worked for a few select clients who had become friends over the years. The rest of my time was spent learning about property management, investments, and planning for the future. The legal battles with Patricia had finally ended. The courts upheld Eleanor's will completely, and Patricia had eventually stopped fighting when she realized she was only wasting money on lawyer fees. Marcus, however, had surprised me. He reached out a few weeks after the inheritance was settled, apologizing for his mother's behavior and asking if we could talk. He told me he remembered me from visits to his grandmother's house, how Eleanor's face would light up when she talked about me. She was happier in her last few years than she had been since my grandfather died, he had said. I think you gave her something we couldn't, genuine friendship without any agenda. I had used part of my inheritance to start a foundation in Eleanor's name, helping other domestic workers get education and training for better opportunities. The first scholarship recipient was my roommate Maria, who was now studying to become a nurse. I had also bought a small house for my mother in Mexico, finally able to give back to the woman who had sacrificed everything to give me a chance at a better life in America. But perhaps the most important thing I had learned was about my own worth. For years, I had defined myself by my job title, just a cleaning lady, as Patricia had so cruelly put it. But Eleanor had seen something more in me, and gradually I began to see it too. Standing in that sunroom, holding the silver locket Eleanor had left me, I realized that the greatest gift she had given me wasn't the money or the properties. It was the lesson that kindness matters, that human connection transcends social status, and that we all have value regardless of our job titles or bank accounts. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Mr. Chen. Sarah, I have some news that might interest you. Patricia's son Marcus has been asking about volunteer opportunities with your foundation. He says he wants to honor his grandmother's memory by helping others. I smiled, looking out at the garden where Eleanor and I had spent so many afternoons talking. Maybe this was part of her plan too, bringing her family together through the foundation, healing old wounds through service to others. Tell him to come by tomorrow, I said. Eleanor always believed in second chances. As I hung up the phone, I thought about how a simple act of treating someone with dignity and kindness had changed not just my life, but the lives of everyone around me. Eleanor had taught me that we all have the power to make a difference, regardless of our circumstances. I was no longer just a cleaning lady. I was Sarah Martinez, Eleanor's chosen daughter, guardian of her legacy, and proof that sometimes the most extraordinary gifts come from the most ordinary moments of human connection. The keys that had once felt so foreign in my hands now felt like they belonged there. They weren't just keys to a house. They were keys to a future I never could have imagined, a future built on love, kindness, and the unshakable belief that every person has immeasurable worth. And as the California sun rose fully over the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of hope, I knew Eleanor was smiling somewhere, proud of the woman I had become and the life I was building with her gift of love.